Spend less time searching and more time hauling loads with the Truck Stop Loadboard. Find the right load at the right time to put more money in your pocket. Learn more today.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Today, we welcome Brent Hutto, Senior Advisor for TruckStop.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brent.
Oh my gosh, Mary, so great to be back on with you. I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate how joyful and organic you make it and you keep it real. So thank you so much for having me on.
Anytime. We pride ourselves over here on not taking ourselves too seriously. And I like to think we've done a pretty good job of it, mostly because I can't take my own self too seriously. So, all right, before we get into our hot topic of the day, which is load boards, they're having their moment in the sun. So we're going to give them some attention. Before we get too far into that, though, let's get some background on you and how you got started with TruckStop.com.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been in the trucking industry since 98. And I met this guy back in 99 named Scott Mosgrip, who started this company called The Internet Truck Stop. And I just became friends with him. And then 2013, I joined the company just to kind of help the company to grow the company and create a brand, a unique brand in the marketplace. So I was there from 2013 through 2017. No, excuse me. Where are we? What year are we in? Through 2025. So yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's freight, right? It's been a crazy season for us for sure. But just learned a tremendous amount about how freight moves and why load boards are a strategic player inside this entire system. And so, yeah, happy to be on today to talk about load boards and what's going on with them, kind of the history of them and that sort of thing. So it's an exciting topic for me because it was such a pivotal point for me in my career.
I am excited about it because the thing is, load boards, I feel like, have gotten a lot of flack lately. They've kind of been thrown front and center in the whole freight fraud debacle. And I'm not saying that there's not necessarily one right way or one wrong way, but I just feel like load boards, what they started as, which is like, hey, I need someone to haul some things for me. Would you like to haul some things for me? And I'm looking to haul some things. Maybe I can find something that works for me. What started out with those, because that even back in the day, those were just literally bulletin boards at a truck stop, right? They weren't the digital thing came obviously with the rise of the internet, but they've always been around.
Yeah, for sure. They've been around. They've been around since Al Jubitz created a company called Dial-A-Truck way back in the day, So, and it used to be you had to go to a truck stop to look at a TV to find these loads. And it was hard. You had to look on the TV and run to the payphone and make a phone call. And the carrier had zero visibility into the marketplace until 1995, when a young, enterprising man named Scott Mosgrip decided to use the internet to create an online version of that carriers could now have access into. And that's really, honestly, Mary, what blew the market up. And what I mean by that is it allowed the marketplace to grow. Because when you create balance between both sides, both brokers and carriers, then you're able to create the negotiation of the process, and then more people come to that marketplace. I mean, here's the thing. So when the internet became a real thing for freight in the marketplace, and that's when the spot market, that was 1995. In 1995, 5% of the freight in America was moved in the spot market. Today, it's north of 30. It's $1 trillion industry. So you can imagine the growth. You want to know why so many brokers are now in this business? Well, the marketplace continued to grow because both sides could work together, because the information was visible to both sides. And that's really important when you're doing any transaction, especially in the single transaction spot market. You need both sides to have access to the information so both sides can move quickly, make a profit, and move the freight as quickly as possible for the ultimate customer, the shipper. But really, that's really how it happened, because when you have both sides have balance and visibility into it, marketplaces grow. And that's really what's been remarkable about load boards and how they've helped the industry grow to what it is today.
I think that's a really because like you say, it's kind of it takes me back to that old not old, but like kind of that philosophy around freight brokerage that, you know, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of there's a reason athletes thrive in there. Is it's a competitive environment where if you work hard, you're going to get rewarded. But also it makes you like kind of level up your playing field. And so the fact that, you know, carriers were able to come in and would have all of this negotiation information and say, hey, you know, I'm not going to be taken advantage of. This is going to be a partnership. I think that in turn makes both sides better, if that makes sense, where you want to always be competing against the best, but you don't want to be competing against someone with like an arm tied behind their back. And I think that because of the internet and because we were able to keep put load boards online, it's really been able to kind of level everything up and kind of make it a competitive playing field, if you will.
Yeah, think about it this way too, though. Think about, okay, if you're a broker in the marketplace, the thing that you need to move the freight is what? Capacity, right? You have to have capacity in the marketplace. And so you don't need just a nominal amount of capacity. You need the greatest amount of capacity possible that can haul freight for you. So because you can't grow your business if you don't have a truck to move the freight. So this is what I mean by the balance of what the modern load board did. And really this was brought to bear by Scott Mosgrip when he started Truck Stop in 1995, July 25th, 1995. And because it gave a very, very small player, a one truck owner operator, the ability to sustain and grow their business without having to invest tremendously into the technology that most brokers are having to invest into. But it allowed more and more company drivers, leased on owner operators, which that's obviously the bigger part of this 4.2 million truck marketplace. It allowed them to go, man, I want to chase my dreams. I'd like to become an independent owner operator, run my own business, be my own leader of my business. How can I do that? Well, there's an entire online marketplace that gives you all the information to allows you to be able to run your business, scale your business, and not have tremendous risk when it comes to and having to invest in things, because these are very, very small players. So to me, it's been a huge boom for not just the carrier, but for the broker as well, because when there's more capacity, marketplaces grow, because that's sort of the muscle that allows the freight to move. So yeah, so super, super interesting when you look at it from the outside.
So we have that as how it started, how it originated, and all of that. And then we have what we know it as now, which is where fraud lives. You don't want to expose yourself to fraud on a load board. That's where you're going to get double brokered and your stuff's going to get hijacked, which, yes, that does happen when you use a load board. But there are also very great carriers that are out there. And there are other opportunities out there to grow your business, not like Mr. Fraud McFraudson isn't hiding behind the curtain waiting to jump out and get you. So how do you think it has gone from kind of the tool that allowed carriers and brokers to grow their business and, you know, kind of become successful and make the freight world what it is now? And now how did it get to, you know, basically the boogeyman of freight?
Yeah, well, let's first off, if you saw me giggling a little bit, it's not because I'm laughing at fraud, because fraud is no joke, and it is no joke at all. I'm laughing because of perception, and this is, and I've got 5 kids, so I'm always yelling at my kids about stuff. I'm like, perception is not always reality, and it's not. Now, when the modern freight marketplace, which includes load boards for the spot market, became what it is today. What happened was we were so enthusiastic about automating everything. All these automated platforms. We're going to book it now. We're going to move it immediately. All freight's going to be automated. We forgot to do one really, really important thing. And I don't know why in transportation we forgot to do this, but we did. We forgot to put cybersecurity and checks and balances in ourselves. And do you know why? Mary, this is why. This is the reason why I know. This is why everybody loves trucking. Everybody loves trucking because we like each other. We trust each other. We go, don't worry about old Jim. Don't worry about old Jane. They're a great trusted person in the marketplace. And that's on both sides for brokers and carriers. We forgot to do that. And so the reason that when fraud became a real problem, that's October 2022. And Craig and I've had lots of conversation about this, how fraud and where it started. And it became an issue because there were so many, like, the data in the market had been automated, so it's opened for everybody to have access to. Well, there were a lot of open doors in the market. So in October 2022, when the market became normal again, or it got pivoted all the way back down to normal, we had organized crime that realized, oh, I bet I could still freight and freight payments because there's a lot of open doors. And so when Loadboards did have a problem in the beginning, and certainly we had our fair share at truckstop.com, but when you have a singular system, you're able to correct the problems in it really quick. So you're able to shut the doors where the boogeyman, as you say, gets access into it. You're able to shut those doors really quick. So over the next 12 months, Truckstop basically put bank level security all the way around its system, and it changed everything in the market. So we also have a product called RMIS, which has the largest collection of carriers registrations in the market as well. So we're able to really put incredible security around all of that to move those bad players out. We also get advised of when bad players are in the marketplace, and we're able to shut them out very quickly. So that kind of sets you kind of where you are today. Now, the biggest struggle in this marketplace, and by the way, I'm talking about this next week out in California at the Travelers Veris conference about why load boards are safe and secure, as secure as they can be in any market that needs to trust each other, and where the real challenges are in the marketplace. So that kind of gives you an idea on load boards. Now, the issue where the doors are still open and there's still vulnerabilities, Mary, is in where the open market works outside of load boards. And I'm not saying you need to always go through load boards. You just need really good security. If you think about what happened in this marketplace when Uber kind of came in the market, they started privately automating a platform. Well, many people followed suit. Great, wonderful, large players follow suit. They've all got platforms, or they rent a platform, or they lease a platform from other providers in the market that allow them to take their data and send it out to all of the carriers they have within their own database, which is great. It's wonderful distribution for freight. The problem is you need to make sure there's the same level of security there as would be in what I described that truckstop.com has now. The problem is that's not unitary everywhere, where a lot of the bigger players, they've got incredible security on it because they got a lot of struggles as well with fraud on their platforms, to the point that they almost eliminated more than half of the core carriers that actually have access to their freight. They got really, really tight on their security, which is great, which is what we need. But we need the entire industry to do that. So every broker in America, every carrier in America needs some level of data purification, cybersecurity software within their systems to really start figuring out how we can eliminate these open doors where fraudulent players come in and steal what is rightfully being gained by the carrier and the broker. So that kind of gives you like an oversight over what we've gone through at Truckstop over the last 36 months, with fraud becoming a reality in how we move freight.
I mean, it really has become kind of an all-encompassing problem. Like, it's, first of all, I still maintain that if organized crime is this efficient with stealing freight and moving goods, babes, I've got oh boy, do I have an opportunity for you. Should you want to go legitimate, you will be beating people back.
That's full. I know. Well, they're good at what they do, unfortunately for us.
Yes, but should they ever want to go legitimate, boy, do I have a bunch of people that I would love to introduce them to, and they could make so much money. But I understand, that's not the criminal way. So that being said, it kind of has become this all-encompassing solution. It's kind of leaves you feel like you're more or less like chasing a ghost. You're just trying to chase and stay ahead and just make sure that your shipper and yourself and your carriers and all of your partners are protected, because you don't want to be the weak link that comes in or that causes a security breach or causes someone else to have problems. You don't want to be that person, because then that kind of ruins your reputation a little bit. Even though it's something that could happen to all of us, it can't happen too frequently, because then your shippers are like, okay, well, are my goods safe with you? Is my information safe with you? It's that picture. It's like that kind of the bigger picture of, does this person take security seriously? And how do I know that they're taking them seriously? And I think that that's also another problem that we have to kind of address is, it's not just the load boards. It's also, what is our response to fraud? What safety measures do we have in place throughout the organization to make sure that all of our goods and our shippers' stuff are protected?
Right. Yeah, for sure. I've got a slide that I'll share next week. And I did this. This is the same presentation that I gave to the pharmaceutical cargo security and part of the industry. I gave that back in January. And because a lot of the pharma people are very, very tight with their security, and they're like, oh, you can never use a load board. And the guy who heads this up said, could you come talk about why load boards are safe? in today's market. And so I did that. So one of the slides that I talk about is that it's a giant market. So you kind of hit on it, Mary, which I really appreciate you doing, where you were talking about sort of like the vulnerable point of parties working together. So there's about the FMCSA says there's about 20,000 brokers. I won't tell you there's like 11,000 that kind of operate inside the marketplace. So there's about 20,000 brokers that all have their data, all of their core carrier networks. They have all this giant amount of data. And then you've got, I don't know, 200,000 or 300,000, 400,000 carriers operate inside the spot market on and off. And it's not just one or two truck operators. You've got 10 truck operators, 20 truck owners, all kinds of sizes that operate inside this marketplace, because it's a viable marketplace for you to get to find and move freight. The struggle is the mathematics between all of those private email offers, all those private text offers, all those private website offers, all the way to the carrier in this marketplace is really where the vulnerability is the most, because those are independent transactions of data moving back and forth. They're not in a secure, it's not like you're working within a bank environment. You're on your bank site and they have all the security in it. You're moving outside. And unless you have the same level of security, then I'm just telling you, this isn't freight fraud or freight theft today, and freight payment theft is not like it used to be. This isn't a small group. This is a very organized group. In many ways, they look just, if you walked in the door of their office, you'd say, this is just a standard business. Yet their entire setup is designed to steal what you rightfully own. And it's amazing how well they work. And so I think about the vulnerable points in the marketplace. And that's really kind of how I think about this, and truckstop.com thinks about this as we continue to try to help all these players, because we feel like we have a high responsibility to protect all the players, all the carriers in the marketplace, and all the brokers that do business with us, because it's good for our industry, and it's really, in the end, it's good for our country. If you think about what someone who might steal something could do if they were really thinking along the bad lines of being like to the terroristic end of things. And so we think about those things all the time when we're trying to make sure we have a secure marketplace.
So you guys have done the work, you've done the homework, you've said we're investing in creating a safe environment and a safe kind of ecosystem for all of those that participate in our network. Everyone outside of it, best of luck. We wish you the best of luck. But for the most part, you say, hey, if you're doing business on the truckstop.com load board, you're going to be okay. So if I'm a broker looking to maybe put some of my freight on a load board, or say, hey, I really got to get this load covered, and I go to turn and I've exhausted all of these options over here, and I'm going to go put it on this load board over here. How do I, but there's, as you know, there's a bajillion different load boards to choose from. How do I know which ones I should be using, or if I should have more, if I should have one, should I have more than one? What are things that I need to look for when I go to source on a load board? Because obviously I'm going to try my carriers, my standard list. I'm going to try all those first, because then I don't have to onboard them. It just moves a little bit faster. But if I have exhausted all those options, what do I need to be looking for? It's just kind of like an extra step precaution of, hey, maybe this carrier is not fraudulent, or maybe this isn't even a platform that I want to be associating with.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me kind of address your statement where you said there's a bajillion load boards. There's really not a bajillion load boards. There's two dominant ones, and there's the minor ones in the marketplace. And to me, I look at it from a standpoint of access. Where do you get the greatest amount of access to the marketplace? So I would reach out to load board and understand their security measures they have within their own system first, because you're putting your data, you're putting your trust, you're putting your company reputation out there to a public marketplace. So number one, and by the way, Mary, I would say ask your load board this question, but also look inside your own company. Are you doing these same things? So when I was presenting at the Healthcare Distribution Association, the pharmaceutical part of the marketplace, they had a person on stage that talked about what are the things you can do to protect your system. So she was talking about pharmaceutical shippers that were out there. And it was interesting because the things that she said, I'm going, oh, we already have that at truckstop.com. It's interesting. So she talked about multi-factor authentication. And it's the same thing we do all the time. When you go onto a website, you log in, but then it says you got to go. It's going to send a code to your mobile phone. It's going to send a code to your email, and then you got to enter that code. That's multi-factor authentication. That eliminates a lot of the bad players in the marketplace. Second is identity verification. I know it's crazy. I know it's crazy, and it's a pain in the butt for everybody in the market. But identity verification, when you can prove who you are visually and through another form within those platforms, that eliminates the other giant part of the players. Because here's what the criminals do: if they get resistance, they go the other direction. They go to the least path of resistance every single time. So if you've got a ton of resistance in there, you're not going to be an easy target for them. So this will be the same thing. Ask your load board these questions. Ask your own company these questions, because if you do these two things, you're going to be able to get a lot out. Now, the last part of this, and this is kind of where it comes into, how are you constantly monitoring your data and your data purity in your marketplace? Now, here's why I say this. So it's amazing how all the ways that these criminals try to come in. You've got identity impersonation, you got selling of authorities, you got chameleon brokers, you got a pure identity theft. And by the way, this is on the same side. Brokers are just as suspect of this as the carrier is. It's not like they're just attacking one side, but they will attack the weakest point. One of the things, Mary, this is really cool. Not cool. This is really nefarious. You ever seen somebody's computer get taken over? I've seen it. There's a movie that talks about it. Where you'll say, oh, you'll think you're talking to somebody's trying to solve a problem for you, but they're actually putting a bot on the backside of your system, and then now they can get access to your system and they can take over your system. Well, that's the new tactic that's going on. But the old trusty way to get into every single system is by phishing. In other words, just nefarious emails that allow you an open door, allow the bad person an open door to get in the market. But if you have those things that I was talking about, multi-factor authentication and identity purification or identity verification into your system, you're going to cut out like 90% plus of the problems in the market. And then everything else you just sort of mitigate along the lines. But that's the advice I would give anybody. By the way, I would give a single carrier, I'd say buy the best cybersecurity you can. Make sure that you're able to verify that broker that you're doing business with is valid. Because by the way, at Truckstop, if we find anybody that's nefarious, first thing we do is shut your access off to the system and then make you go and prove yourself, even if you're a well-known brand in the marketplace. We do this to make sure we protect the marketplace, because if not, then you allow really bad things to happen inside of a platform that has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of loads every single day on it.
And that's something that I think a lot of times people overlook, is that the carriers also need to be taking these steps. The carriers also need to be protecting themselves. It's not necessarily, obviously we focus heavily on the freight broker community here, but it's still something that, carriers or freight brokers should be reminding carriers of, like, hey, you need to be investigating me as much as I'm investigating you, or verifying or making sure that I'm legitimate and you're legitimate at the same time.
Well, Mary, this goes back to, if you have a relationship with somebody and they can verify who they are, usually a phone call. And I've done this, by the way. I bought 2 cars last year I have twin sons. I bought 2 cars last year. I made the salesman get on his phone via FaceTime and show me the dealership, show me his business card. I made him verify his own self because I got paranoid. I'm like, I'm spending $50,000 on 2 cars here. So another thing, so it's all about knowing what's coming at you from a standpoint of things. And look, where can you get this data and this information, Mary? And so since you talked about brokers, I can't encourage enough for brokers to be involved in their industry. Get involved in what the Transportation Intermediaries Association is doing for broker security for the marketplace. I can't emphasize enough, get involved in an association called TAPA, T-A-P-A, the Transported Asset Protection Association. This is all of the brokers, carriers, shippers, law enforcement, insurance companies. It's all the information security divisions of those companies that are part of this association. They have about 2,000 members, and this is where you can get the best information on how to protect your business from a security standpoint, because that's all they do. That's all I think they dream about it every night when they go to bed. But you got to be involved in that. The other thing is, make sure you're involved in what's going on from an advocacy or a legislation standpoint. Right now, there's a bill out there, if you don't know about it, called the Corca bill. It's basically a bill being passed so there can be a central database on cargo theft for the United States, run by the federal government. So that's another huge part. But be involved at those 2 levels, and you'll kind of have the knowledge on how to protect your business. And so super important.
100%. Cannot second that enough, that those are fantastic resources. A lot of them, I know TAPA and TIA have a bunch of just free resources on their website if you're not a member, but highly recommend becoming one. That being said, Brent, we are just about out of time today, but there's a question that everybody who comes on the show has to answer, and you, sir, are going to be no exception.
All
If
right,
you
I'm
could build
ready.
a house, if you could build a house out of any food, what would you choose?
Oh my gosh, any food? Ooh,
Hmm.
all right. Now I live in the South. I live in Alabama, so I mean, there's a lot of options, right? To me, there's a lot of options, but
Hmm.
I think there's nothing worse than like a 3 or 4 day old Southern style biscuit. Because
Ooh.
it gets hard as a rock, and you
Mhm.
could stack them, and you could make things out of them into geometric shapes. I thought as you said that, I'm like, okay, well, what would work? What would work? I think if you could build a house out of biscuits, as long as you could like laminate the outside, it'd probably be pretty good. And I guess
I
we
don't
got
even think
hungry.
you need to laminate them. You get a 3-day-old biscuit, you beam it at somebody's head. That's basically a concussion right there.
Also a weapon. That's right. You can protect yourself. Man,
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. Great question.
I like that. And I like the structural route that you took. That way you won't be tempted to eat at your house. Because if you eat a 3-day-old biscuit, you'll break all your teeth off.
You probably will. Absolutely. No doubt. Well, it's been fun talking to you today. I appreciate you. This is such an important question for our problem to continue to solve for our industry, because it's not going away. And
Nope.
if you know what's coming at you and you know how to prepare yourself, then you can mitigate to have to experience this the least amount. So Truck Stop's all in for this. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Anytime. If anyone has questions about maybe a biscuit house, or if they have any questions about how to make sure they're working with a good load board partner, where can they find you outside the show?
Oh, goodness. You can always find us at www.truckstop.com. We celebrated 30 years this year. So we've been around a long time. We know what we're doing in this marketplace, because we know that our job is to protect all the carriers and all the brokers in the marketplace, so they can grow their businesses.
You can check all the podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcast and Spotify. Don't forget to check out all the other incredible FreightWaves shows, and don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet.